Hey crafty friends, this is Jenny from crafttestdummies.com, and today I want to do a comparison and overview of liquid watercolor markers. Now, these differ from real brush markers. Real brush markers have a brush tip and then a regular kind of marker felt barrel. These are actually liquids in as much as that you can actually see in the brush there is liquid product, and you can squeeze these barrels and dispense it, and it still has a brush tip. So what I'm gonna do is go over these four brands, and we'll see if we can find any measurable difference between them. Some of these products have been sent for me to review. A lot of them I've bought with my own money. The Nuvos were sent for review purposes a while ago, but these other ones I actually have purchased with all of my own money. And that includes the Art C brand, Jane Davenport Mermaid Markers, and the Brea Reese liquid watercolors. So let's get started with just comparing the tips and the barrels. So as you can see, a lot of them are really, really similar. Specifically, the Art C brand and the Brea Reese brand are almost, I'm telling you, they are identical to me in every way. As a matter of fact, without the cap, you cannot distinguish which is which. They both have the bulb with the liquid product inside. They have identical sizes of caps and nibs. The only thing that makes it different is the name on it. So one says Artsy and one says Brea Reese. Now, I can't speak to all of the colors because I have a limited colors in these. I bought them in like singles or duples. So I can't really compare, but we are going to just compare the actual product inside. Now, the Jane Davenport has a slightly different barrel. It still has that nice squishy tip and a brush nib, of course, but it also has a little bit different packaging. And the Nuvo is really the one that's kind of different from anybody else in the block. You can't see how much product is in your Nuvos. And I also want to point out they all have this kind of cartridge system and then more liquid on the inside. So I would say it's kind of a bummer to not be able to see how much you have left. Now, theoretically, all of these are refillable in some way, shape, or form. I think you have to keep the cartridge on from it getting too sploochy inside, but you can see there's a lot of product left. But again, these all have this kind of like clear cartridge that just modulates the flow of the product into the tip and then through the bristles. So now that we've taken a look at that, let's do a little swatchy. Okay, so I've given these some time to dry, and now we can take a look at these color swatches. I'm sorry that I couldn't get the colors exactly, but this is as close as I could get among the four different brands that I actually have in my possession. So you can see that again, the Artsy and the Brea Reese look identical. There's no discernible difference between them. Whereas the Mermaid Marker really, I mean, you can see when I first squirted it out there, it is really, really heavily concentrated. So it is my opinion that on the whole, the Jane Davenport Mermaid Markers, and if you want to go back and look in the cards for that review, these are very, very concentrated. So it's almost like a Dr. P.H. Martin's type of super concentrated, which actually makes them a little harder to use right out of the marker because they are so dark, you may not get the color that you're looking for. The Nuvos are also, again, concentrated but lovely. And now what we're gonna do is a little bit of a pull test or a little bit of a drop test. Now I'm gonna go ahead and you can see I had a little bit of water here, but I'm gonna add just a drop of water on each of these because we wanna see how they react or move or lift. So I'm gonna go ahead and place that on there. give that a few minutes to react. And in the meantime, I'm going to take a little bit of a brush, and I'm also going to just add a little bit of water here. And now I have a cat on my table. Can you? Okay, so you can see just in using a little bit of water, all four are very, very reactive. The mermaid markers are so concentrated that it's actually hard to lift them entirely because there's just a lot of color there. They also, interestingly, react in a slightly, almost like a different color. So if you add these with water or mix them, you're gonna get a whole lot of color tones and shades. Whereas the Artsy and the Bria Reese just kind of fade out. They lift to almost nothing, so there's a lot less color in this product. It's a lot less concentrated, whereas the Nouveau, I feel, and the Mermaid, when I look at these, I can see I've been able to lift color, I've been able to move it around, so they just have a lot more going on inside of them. So now I'm going to give you just a little bit of a demo of me using some of the liquid Waterbrush markers. And one of the reasons I wanted to show you this was I had a Periscope follower ask me, well, why would you use these? Like, why not just use pans or watercolors out of a tube? And the answer is that a liquid watercolor is very concentrated and it's very consistent and it's very translucent. So if you try and dilute your pans, depending on how much water you use, you might get a more or less vivid color. These, because you're squeezing it right out of the tube or right out of the barrel, it's going to be the same every time. Also, it's not going to have any of those pigment binders that they use for a tube or a pan watercolor because it doesn't have to be solid. It just stays really liquid, so it's very, very, very vibrant. They're very flexible. You can take them with you and use them straight out of the brush or put them on a palette and mix them up, mix your own colors, dilute them down. It just gives you some more options. I'm not saying it's the best thing to have for you, but it's definitely worth a try and they are a lot of fun. I won't do that part. All right, since the Artsies were really close to each other, I thought I would do some expanded swatching and some sampling to see how things acted. So this is the Artsy, and I did it on some cold press watercolor paper and some just regular cardstock. And you can see the colors and how it lifts really beautifully on watercolor paper. So please use watercolor paper. And here I want to show you just how beautifully you can get the colors to move and puddle if you use a little more. I just found that the Artsies need more product to get the same depth of color. They're just not as concentrated. Now, if I come over here to the Bria Reese, you'll see that while the teal color is a little thinner, you do get more pigment and color in the purple and the magenta, that they are a little more concentrated. And again, they move nicely. Here it is on plain cardstock. And here it is on some watercolor paper that I have I've used a lot of water to get kind of this washy effect. I don't know, I like it, I think, best on the hot press watercolor paper, which means it's smooth, it has less tooth, but it can handle the water. So yeah, maybe it just all depends on the colors you get, but on the whole, I didn't feel like these were as concentrated as the Nouveaux or the Jane Davenports. So let me take a second and just show you. Here's another swatch of the Nouveaux. It's still actually a little bit wet, but you can see how concentrated it is, how I can pull it out and get these great gradations of color. It just looks really watercolory. It looks like a concentrated watercolor. And I just finished a little card, kind of doing the same thing. I just did a little like dabs of color and then moved them around. So I just feel like you have more to work with the Nouveaux or the Jane Davenports. So the last thing to factor in is price and availability. Mermaid markers are widely available, including at Michael's stores, and full price, they're $42.
but you can also use coupons. Even still, for a set of 12, they're only $3.50 a piece. The Bria Reese are $15 for a pack of 3, so $5 a piece. The same for the Art C. However, those have, I think, a more limited availability, although I do know you can get the Bria Reese at Hobby Lobby. I'm not exactly sure if you can find the Nouveaux at the big box stores yet, but I have seen them at my local stamping store. So, with all of those things in consideration, the amount of concentration you get, where you can get the refills, and where you can buy them, I really think the mermaid markers are kind of a winner. Not to mention, I also really love the color palette. But that's just me. You make your own decision based on what's available in your area. Well, that's what I have for you today. I hope you found this comparison of liquid water brush markers helpful and informative, and maybe even got some ideas for how to use them. If you liked it, please give this video a thumbs up, leave a comment, and consider subscribing to our channel. Thank you so much for watching, and have a crafty day.